Welcome. We are reading and understanding the book of Revelation, reading and understanding the message in order to understand the meaning. Always in that order. What does it say? Then what does it mean? Confident that we can read the book, understand the book, because God pronounces a blessing on those who understand and apply. We come to chapter 10. We are studying the central vision of the book. A review may be helpful in giving us orientation. After the prologue in chapter 1, verses 1 through 8, John in the Spirit received a vision, the Son of Man vision. That's how I like to describe it. Chapters 1 through 3, a voice commanded John to write on a scroll. The Greek word biblia may be translated book. I believe scroll is what we should understand here. We're going to call the book of Revelation a book. Other than that, we'll always be talking about various scrolls. On this scroll, letters to messengers of the seven churches. Having written the letters as dictated, in chapter 4, the same voice as in chapter 1 commanded John to come up to heaven. John, again in the Spirit, marking the beginning of yet another vision, enters the throne room of God. And from that throne room, he can see various throne room events. This begins the second vision of the book, a heavenly vision identified by some as the apocalyptic vision, chapters 4 through 16, majority of the book. What is and what is to come, what will occur soon. Chapters 4 and 5 describe the one on the throne and the Lamb, worthy of worship, worthy to open the closed scroll, worthy to open the seals of the scroll. In chapter 6, the Lamb opens 6 seals, revealing conquest and war, famine and hunger, death and the grave. In this world, the world of the first century, Christians who have died for their faithful witness are seen under the altar in the 5th seal, and the judgments of the wrath of the one on the throne and the wrath of the Lamb are revealed in the 6th seal. And in that kind of world, a world in which Christians have died and are dying because they give faithful testimony, the question is, how much longer? How much longer before God's vengeance comes on those who dwell on the earth? And in yet another description of that kind of world, God's wrath points to an ultimate day of wrath, and the question at the end of chapter 6, who can escape? Well, in chapter 7, words of comfort come for God's people, an answer to the question. 6 seals have been opened, and now words of comfort, a view behind the scenes. God's people, 144,000, John hears the number. They are protected, they're sealed, they're marked, they're identified. And an innumerable host has come through great affliction to deliverance and rejoicing around the throne. Faithful witnesses may be killed by the opponents, but even in death, they are protected and delivered by God. And the opponents that we have seen thus far in the book and will continue to see in chapters 8 and 9 are many, but they cannot endure God's wrath. With the opening of the 7th seal in chapter 8, we're given a brief view into heaven, 5 verses. We'll also get a brief look into heaven after the 7th trumpet. Now, beginning in chapter 8, verse 6, John sees 7 angels with 7 trumpets. The first 4 trumpets of warning sound in chapter 8, impacting the earth, nature, the heavenly bodies, parallel to the plagues of Egypt. And the 5th and 6th trumpets we read about in chapter 9, with the result, for those who had been touched by the plagues, they were impenitent. Now, those who had the seal of God on their foreheads, those who had been marked, identified, they were protected. They were not touched by the plagues. And again, we see parallels to the plagues in Egypt. The 5th and 6th trumpets are described as the first and second woes. After that, we come to chapter 10, and we could expect words of comfort for God's people, an explanation to help us understand the message of the trumpets. John is given 2 pieces of information to help prepare God's people for what is yet to come. Chapter 10, John is shown a little open scroll. Chapter 11, at least the first part of that chapter, the 2 witnesses. These are God's intervention, behind the scenes information. We will see that these are to encourage the readers. And then the 3rd woe will come soon after. The 7th trumpet will open the way for what is yet to come. So another smaller open scroll is seen. The mighty angel of chapter 10, verse 1, with the little open scroll may remind us of the angel with the sealed scroll at the beginning of chapter 5. Based on the description, the angel represents divine authority. We're going to use the word book to describe the book of Revelation All of the other writings that we encounter within the book of Revelation, we will describe as scrolls. John is writing on a scroll, letters to churches. The Lamb received and opened the seals of the scroll in chapters 5 through 8. Now John sees a little open scroll as we come to this period of time immediately before the seventh trumpet. John receives the little scroll with instructions to continue prophesying. The little scroll is open in the hand of the angel. John learns there is more yet to be written, the things that are yet to come. He must continue to write, prophesy the contents of this little scroll, which I believe we will find in chapters 12 through 16. That the scroll is open probably indicates it is ready to occur. Old Testament backgrounds give this section a rich and clear meaning. I will mention some of those texts in passing in our study, but time will not permit a listing of all of the specific references. Now, with the angel in chapter 10, speaking like a lion, Old Testament parallels suggest that judgment is indicated. John hears the voice of the angel announcing God's judgment, but the judgment of the seven thunders is sealed. With the little scroll and the shout of the angel, the voice of the seven thunders speak, but those are sealed up. As explanation of the sealing of the thunders, the angel assures that despite the sealing of God's judgments, there will be no more extension of time, no more delay. The announcement that is made immediately after in verses 6 and 7 of chapter 10, there will be no more delay, but in the days of the seventh trumpet, when the seventh angel is about to sound his trumpet, the mystery of God will be accomplished as he has announced to his servants, the prophets. That statement will be fulfilled at the end of chapter 16, at the end of the apocalyptic vision, and we'll note that when we get to that part of our study. Now, a good question, what is that mystery? In the Bible, a mystery is something that has not yet been made known. Here, the mystery is announced to the prophets, but it has not yet been fulfilled. The time for fulfillment is soon, the things that will come after. The little scroll and its contents must take place soon. The question of the martyrs in chapter 6, the fifth seal, will be answered how long? The Old Testament book of Daniel provides background. In Daniel, there was to be a long delay between the prophecy before the persecution came to pass. Here, the persecution is soon. Now, John is again participating in the vision. He takes the little scroll. He's told to eat it. It will be in his stomach bitter. It will be in his mouth sweet as honey, perhaps sweet because the enemy will be destroyed, bitter because the persecution is not yet over and more witnesses will be martyred because of their faithful testimony. He is told, you must prophesy again about many peoples, nations, languages, and kings. Here are the words of comfort for God's people in the midst of the judgments of God's trumpets of warning, the coming judgments of God. God's people are comforted. John receives a call to prophesy again. The contents of the little open scroll will begin in chapter 12 when the seventh angel sounds his trumpet at the end of chapter 11. So the seven trumpets are part of the seventh seal. They're included in the first scroll. The little open scroll contains what John will prophesy next, beginning in chapter 12. So this central apocalyptic vision has two parts, two scrolls. The closed scroll, the sealed scroll, and the Lamb opened the seals. That will be from chapter 6 through 11, and then the little open scroll that John must prophesy again in chapters 12 through 16. Well, as we think about contemporary application, God is present in the world, calling people to himself. Great need of God's people is to be faithful witnesses to God's presence in this world, of God's plan in this world. I look forward to seeing you next time as we study Revelation chapter 11. Thank you for sharing this time with me. May God bless you as you seek to read and to understand and to receiving the blessing of God that is ours as we read and understand the book of Revelation.